How to optimize your portfolio for retirement planning, part 2. All right, so don't forget, this is going to be part of a 4 or 5 part series. So if you haven't seen part 1, just go back and we'll put these in a playlist so you can watch them all not simultaneously, consecutively, because I think it's important. We're going to build a crescendo, if you will. So subscribe down below, and of course, don't forget to comment and thumbs up as well, because they're very helpful to me with the YouTube algorithm. All right, so going back to the article. Buying an income annuity instead of a bond ladder allows a retiree to pay less for a safer income. If the optimal retirement portfolio involves substituting some percentage of bonds with income annuities, then what should the rest of the portfolio look like? So last video, we just talked about the difference between bonds versus annuities, and we came to the conclusion, rightly so, that annuities allow you more income with less risk when it comes to retirement spending. But now you've still got money left over. What are you going to do with that? And that's what we're going to talk about here. If a 60-40 bond to equity portfolio was appropriate for a moderately risk-averse retiree, what would happen if they invested half of their bond portfolio in an income annuity? Their total financial asset portfolio would now be 30% annuities, 30% bonds, and 40% stocks. Their balance sheet, however, would show a 57% equity allocation rather than a 40% equity allocation. Ironically, their 57% equity portfolio would appear riskier, theoretically. It would pose while which would appear riskier, would actually pose less retirement income risk than a non-annuitized 40% equity portfolio. So what portfolio is actually 30-30-40, 30% annuities, 30% bonds, 40% stocks. On the balance sheet, it's showing 57-43. Which one's safer? Well, it's a 30-30-40, but it's the same thing. But they're going to say, oh, you got 50% in stocks and 43% bonds. It's too risky. It's not. It's actually less risky than a typical 40% stock, 60% bond portfolio, because the annuity is guaranteed. All right. According to the Investment Company Institute in 2016, $10 trillion of the total $25 trillion in U.S. retirement assets is in defined benefit plans and annuities. 40%, my friends, of the entire retirement accounts are in annuities and defined benefit plans. This figure doesn't even include the value of government pension plans such as Social Security, which we estimate to be approximately $8 trillion. And that's just for retirees currently in payout status. The value of Social Security benefits for individuals not receiving benefits, this guy, would likely more than double the total estimated value. So another 16 to 20 trillion. Therefore, at least half the total assets that are going to be used to fund retirement are already in some form of guaranteed income. All right, so I'm going to go to the PDF error. We must estimate the mortality variance. Okay, so this is going to be the weight determined. I'm going to go to the PDF right here. Bear with me just a second. All right, we must estimate right here. Oops. All right, so we're using some numbers here. Okay. To determine the value stream of a guaranteed income, we must estimate the mortality weighted present value of future guaranteed income. There are a variety of key assumptions that are important, blah, blah, blah. All right, so what we're going to talk about, for example, when estimating, this is actually pretty important here. The discount rate for any kind of net present value calculation should reflect the riskiness of the cash flows, where safer cash flows would use a lower discount rate. For example, estimating the value of Social Security retirement benefits, Treasury bonds would likely be a suitable discount rate. While counterparty risk for annuities, insurers' reserves, and state guarantees suggest a discount rate of corporate bonds. So what's going on here is we're saying if you're going to use corporate bonds as your discount rate, if you're going to use corporate bonds, i.e. a bond ladder, you shouldn't use Treasury bonds as your discount rate because corporate bonds are riskier simply because insurers' reserves and state guarantees are behind the annuities, which are not guaranteed behind the bonds. So the longer duration of deferred annuities would require a higher discount rate, assuming a positive term premium. Okay. All right. So we provide some calculations to serve as a guidance on how much of a stream of income is worth. The analysis uses the Treasury yield curve for discount rates and Society of Actuaries immediate table for mortality rates. And I think we see the chart here. Yeah, right here. This is pretty good, actually. So I want to show that to you. All right. So we're going to use let's see, let me just go back to what I want to talk about here. Bear with me just a second. All right. Hold on just a second. What did I say right here? Use PDF. Okay, we just went to the PDF. I want to keep. All right, here we go. All right, so basically, we talk about that. When you have the high regulation of state insurers relative to income annuities and all annuities, that gives a second layer of protection that an annuity has that a bond ladder does not. All right, so there you. Okay, we'll keep going down here. For the joint benefit, which is husband and wife or same-sex couple, doesn't matter, but a joint couple, for the joint benefit, we are going to assume annuity payments continue and don't decrease when the first spouse passes away, which is called the 100% survivor benefit. This is consistent with how private pension and annuities with 100% spousal continuation benefit work, but it's different from Social Security benefits, since the surviving spouse typically receives the larger of the benefits that the two individuals getting. So in this case, we're assuming that you have 100% survivor benefit, which is the default actually for most income annuities. The numbers in Table 1 allow an advisor to estimate the approximate value of a guaranteed income source. For example, a married couple, male and female, both age 65 with a pension benefit that increases annually with inflation and starts immediately would have a multiplier of 25.7. I know this seems like we're getting the weeds, but bear with me. If the expected income benefit was $50,000, the portfolio at this value of this benefit would be $1.285 million. So what I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here we're saying we got a couple, husband and wife, Josh and Charlotte. We're male and female. And they're saying if we're going to start with an annuity, all right, at 65 years old, and we're going to say it's going to give us $50,000 a year in income, our net present value using the Treasury yields as our proxy, as our discount rate, would we have to take that $50,000 and times it by 25.7 to get the net present value of what we'd want to use it today in terms of what is that worth in total numbers. So we take $50,000 and times by 25.7, and that gives us $1.285 million. So again, if we're starting today, years until benefit starts, zero, because we're 65 and we're starting today. Husband and wife, same age. We're saying we're going to get $50,000 a year from our annuity. That means the net present value is going to be $1.285 million in terms of total wealth that we have. Now, if we're only getting $10,000 a year, we just take $10,000 times that by 25.7. And that gives us $250,000 as a net present value. So I hope that makes sense. So let's keep going down here. And tons of charts in here that you can run. Single male, male, female. You can run it every which way you want. So let's keep going. All right. Including the present value of the, why are we doing that, by the way? Because including the present value of annuitized income as part of a holistic balance sheet allows for you, an investor, to better understand the resources that can be used to meet an income goal in retirement. Just because a mutual fund investment value appears on a quarterly statement does not make the asset any more valuable if the client's goal is to provide income in retirement. Similarly, when a retiree purchases an annuity, this does not mean their ability to meet their goals has been reduced because it's no longer on the income sheet or the balance sheet. Excuse me. I want to keep going down here. There's a couple blank this. All right. Because assets only have value because they can be used to meet future spending. So what they're saying is if you have a balance sheet of $100,000, $50,000 in bonds, $50,000 in stocks, and you take $25,000 out to buy an annuity, your balance sheet is $75,000. And it looks like, oh, I've actually reduced my ability to meet my income need because my balance sheet is low. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's less because you have the $25,000 over here and a guaranteed income annuity, but it's not a balance, not a liquid account that I can tap into. Instead, it produces me a monthly income. Similar. You wouldn't put Social Security on a balance sheet. You would put it on an income statement, but not on a balance sheet. So someone say my balance sheet is $10. Well, if you're getting $4,000 a month on Social Security, where does that? You have no money? No, you get $4,000 a month. So how do we factor in that on a balance sheet? Well, we take the net present value of all your Social Security payments, and we have a discount rate according to a Treasury yield. That's how it's done. So again, you just can't remove something off your balance sheet and assume it's just gone, because it does provide an income stream that you can't outlive. Thus, it needs to be included in your overall portfolio for optimal allocation. All right, so in order to understand how holding annuitized wealth affects the safety of a retirement plan, we need to conduct an analysis to determine how the optimal equity allocation for a retiree should change for a variety of situations. Again, the base scenarios for a couple both age 65. We just talked about that. Instead of modeling a single fixed retirement period, for instance, 30 years. Oh, you're 65, you live to your 95. Okay, where are we getting that from? Just pulling out of the air. This retirement model weights the probability of the retiree household to a surviving to each age. As noted by Blanchett in 2008 and others, true success is a portfolio providing income for the life or lives of the retiree household and not over some arbitrary period. I completely agree. So we're going to say you're going to live to 30. You're going to live 30 years. If you have money after 30 years, that's great. You win. But what if you live 34 years? What if you live 28 years? I mean, that's what we need to do. So to provide, to provide some perspective on the distribution of mortality in the simulations, there is a 43% chance that at least one member of the couple will survive 30 years in retirement, a 16% probability of surviving 30 years, and a 3% probability of surviving 40. So that's what we're trying to say. We're saying, what's the likelihood of this happening, and how do we use that for our current allocation for a 65-year-old couple today? All right, so let's keep going because lots going on here. Each scenario test is based on a 1,000-run Monte Carlo projection where each run is assumed to last a maximum of 50 years up to the age of 115. All right, so we're 65 now. We're going to last 50 years, 115. For each projection, initial withdrawal rates were from 1% to 10% are considered in 0.1% increments, given 91 test withdrawal rates. Now, this is big. Taxes and required distributions are ignored for simplicity. And now we are using a small, 0.5% investment management fee as well. So unlike some of the 4% rules where they don't use taxes, they don't also use an investment management fee. Here, my man Blanchett and Fink are using both, okay? All right, so let's pause there. We're going to come back. So I want to go to part 3 on this because this is where the end results will show you, because I think it's pretty important, because we're going to run a boatload of scenarios. You're not going to see it. You're just going to see the end results. I think you'll like it. So don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for part 3. Part 3 is coming up next on what the results look like for the Blanchett and Fink model. And then we're going to go downstairs to the whiteboard and show you some other things that we can look in terms of how this could affect you specifically. All right. Thanks, guys.